if the judgment is spiritual and I mean only a child of God can see it. I guess a fair question is if they don't understand. They give too much credit to Satan. They think that he is bringing trouble to the world. But it's the Lord, like it says in Psalm chapter 2, where he's ruling with a rod of iron and he's breaking the nation as potter's vessel. But you know where the passage where it says that Satan is the spirit of the power of the air, something like that? And
Prince
the prince of the power of the air. And if he's being defeated and he's being deposed, is he still the prince of the power of the air on the children of disobedience? Only on them? Or is being taken God away from him as well?
So Satan has been removed from all authority. From all authority that he has had in this world. And so he doesn't have partial authority even over his own children. God is the one who has complete authority. Christ is the one who has complete authority now in the day of judgment. And so there is you had mentioned something that I want to touch on real quick. You said that only the true children of God understand that we're in a spiritual judgment.
Right.
I think that would be incorrect to conclude, because there's been a lot of people prior to May 21, 2011, who proclaimed and they preached judgment on the churches. And they knew that judgment was spiritual in nature. Come May 21, 2011, 90% of them vanished. They either went back to the church, they stepped away from the Bible, they went into the world. They wanted nothing else to do with it.
She knew.
And yet they understood
she knew.
what the Bible talked about in Daniel when he says, only the wise shall understand. So it almost seems like contradictory. And I think that's the reason why when I was tracking and doing the caravans and all that stuff with all these people that we were meeting up with, in my mind, I was like, wow, these are all of God's elect. Here we are together. They finally all surfaced, and we're all doing God's work together. And then come May 21, 2011, May 22, nowhere to be found. And so what I think God is referring to when he talks about none of the wicked shall understand in the book of Daniel is that there may be some who pass one test. There may be few others who pass the second test. And when I say test, I mean that God tests his people through doctrines. And as they continue to pass maybe the third, maybe the fourth test, God keeps bringing out these new doctrines, and at some point they're going to fail. They're going to reject. And when they reject this one doctrine that they just can't get over, they fail the test. They've demonstrated that they were not true children of God to begin with. You know, it's like the parable of the sower and the seed. You know, they believe for a while, and then they fall away. So for everybody, I think it's different. You know, that's why we can't be led by what we see externally, by somebody's external behavior, external attitude toward the things of the Bible, because, you know, we tend to think, okay, wow, they're still preaching the gospel, or they're still in the right path, and yet we're looking at them and we're thinking they got to be one of God's elect. Okay, so there's no way.
Eddie's so right.
Who is the true child of God and who isn't? It's hard enough for an individual between them and God to work out their own salvation. You know, so for us to think,
the girl said, "Don't take it,"
and determine that, yeah, that's got to be a true child of God. I'm going to start calling him brother or sister.
So would you say that in Matthew chapter 24, verse 12, when it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold.
We're not saved.
Man is gonna
we're trusting in something else.
From looking
wasn't the truth.
For those things, looking for you know
our own imagination,
all the teachings and
our own deceit, and the lies of men.
The new doctrines that we have learned, like May 21, 2011, was the beginning of the spiritual judgment day, and of course 2033, all the evidence is pointing to 2033 and so forth. So they stop looking for those things.
When we talk about God's love, or the love, when it talks about the love of many, we understand that love in the Bible equates to obedience. And so when we're looking at, okay, well, how are we being obedient? Well, we're being obedient by keeping God's commandments. That's how we show God that we love Him. We're not keeping God's commandments because we're trying to gain His favor, because we're trying to secure our spot in heaven. Not at all. God did all that work. We're keeping God's commandments because we love Him. And so as we're preaching the gospel of God's judgment to a world that doesn't want to hear it, as we're preaching the fact that the world is under God's wrath, we are keeping God's commandments. We are showing God that we love Him. And so that's what I was referring to earlier when I said that many people who were proclaiming the end of the church age and that May 21 was coming, and that all of a sudden May 22nd showed up and everyone stopped. Most everyone stopped. The love that they had to proclaim the truth of the Bible waxed cold. And I believe that that's what it's referring to. They no longer felt the desire to do that because they couldn't truly see what was taking place. There was other people who, for a while after May 21, 2011,
God divided the world,
preaching God's judgment, even on the world. And yet, something else came along, another doctrine, maybe annihilation, maybe the fact that Christ paid for sins from the foundation of the world. And one of those doctrines, they failed. And they started falling away, and you can see through their doctrine, because the Bible does teach us that we can tell, even though we can't tell who an elect believer is, we can discern who a false teacher is, because it's by what comes out of their mouth. Because what comes out of their mouth stems from the heart, the condition of their heart. By their fruits you shall know them. It's not talking about elect, that's talking about false prophets. And so when someone who was following for so long begin to reject another doctrine that God has revealed, well, not only do they reject that doctrine, but they also begin to fall back and revert and even start teaching things that they once probably didn't even teach before. And so you begin looking at this and you begin to see that, okay, not only, you're not just rejecting this new doctrine, but you've actually gone backwards. You're going in the wrong direction, let alone just stopping where you are and teaching everything that you thought was correct up to that point, except this one doctrine you don't agree with. No, it's like failing at that one point reverts them back to teaching things that you would have never thought that they were going to be teaching.
Like there is still salvation and going back to church and
or refusing even to preach about God's judgment. Imagine that.